Parrish, Florida looks like it is in the middle of nowhere. And in this video, I'm boots on the ground because I want to show you what it's actually like. Because a lot of Parrish looks like this, but a lot of Parrish also looks like this. Brand new master plan communities, but there are a lot of caveats and things that you as a relocation buyer are probably confused about. For instance, what the heck is a CDD and can you avoid that? How do you choose between the different builders down here? And how do you make sure you actually end up in a location that is established versus a spot that you gotta wait years to come before people start moving in? And so in this video, we're going over everything. We are boots on the ground because I wanna show you exactly what it is like to live in Parrish, Florida, 2026. Okay, so let's get a high-level understanding of the map and everything to do with Parrish. So if we're looking at Tampa Bay, we got Tampa up here, St. Pete down here, and Parrish is located south of St. Pete across the bridge on Interstate 275. This is called the Skyway Bridge. And when you get across there, you end up in Parrish. And historically, really, this entire area has looked mostly like this, but with the recent growth that we've seen in Florida, a lot of people are choosing to move to Parrish. One, because they want new construction. That's the best on insurance, best when it comes to avoiding flood zones and worrying about hurricanes. And just when it comes to navigating to Florida in general, that seems to be the type of home that appeals to the most amount of buyers. And so that's really what's created the explosion of growth in Parrish. Okay, if you're considering moving to Parrish, then you've likely heard of North River Ranch, which is the community located right here. And this is one of the most popular communities that people are talking about in Parrish. And when you are navigating the lifestyle, really this is what I want to highlight. The community matters so much because the reason you're moving to Parrish is not necessarily anything to do with what's in and around you in Parrish. You're moving for the lifestyle you get in these master plan communities where you have space, you have a yard, you can have a pool, you have plenty of house, you don't feel cramped, you don't feel like you're living on top of your neighbors, everything is new. Sometimes it's just about being the first one to be on the toilet seat makes the biggest difference. Another pro I hear from a lot of people relocating to Parrish is because it's so new, everybody else is new, so it's a lot easier to make friends. But in terms of the lifestyle decision, you're really making that around the community. One thing that truly sets the lifestyle in Parrish apart from a lot of the other spots, and something to keep in mind when you're choosing between communities, is the amenities. And so we're here in North River Ranch, and Aubrey's going to tell us a bit about the amenities here in the community. But I mean, it's a nice day. It's 65 degrees out. Well, it's actually way colder than that.
It's freezing.
It's freezing. It's like
40.
It's like 40 degrees. That's why no one's out at the pool. But we've seen a lot of folks just kind of riding through the community, the BMX trails and stuff. But I'll let Aubrey tell you guys more about that.
Yeah, so there's water slides, which as a kid I would think is crazy. I would love that. There's like an activity post. There's a community center. There's, the BMX and pickleball. So they really prioritized adding in amenities to where you feel like you don't have to leave your community to have something to do, which is so nice. And they really planned that out. And that's something that you can find here in North River Ranch and then also in a lot of different communities. So that's something that you need to keep in mind when you are looking for a home here in Parrish, is definitely think about your community more than you think about Parrish itself, because that is what is going to have all of the cool features like these water parks and all of that.
North River Ranch started building a while ago, but they've really only built down here south of where these power lines are. They are now building north of the power lines, and it just looks a whole lot like what they envisioned in the beginning. And again, this is another pro and con with choosing these communities is, yeah, you might be getting in on it early and you might have to deal with the new construction and stuff, but you're also taking advantage of lower prices. The more built out this community gets, the more popular, the more it feels like an established area, the higher the prices will go. That being said, we'll talk about resale more later, but I'm going to actually share about why you should maybe wait to sell if the builder is still building, because it can be really tough, that as well. So really with Parrish, the main thing to note is it does have its own school, Barbara A. Harvey K-8, which is open already. They also have Camp Creek, which is where we were standing in front of me and Aubrey, and so that they've got the water park slide. They have a lot, and all these trails, all these amenities are just packed, and people are everywhere. People are taking advantage of them, and that's really what's cool. Is it's not just barren, it's not just sitting empty. Like literally days like even yesterday, like as we were there walking around, like we just saw countless people using everything.
All right, so I'm standing right here where Cardel is actually building some homes, and you can see behind me there's actually a school. It is a middle school, and it's within the North River Ranch community. And so, what the builders are doing is a little bit because Parrish didn't have a lot of people, there wasn't really a lot of schools for all the people who are moving to the community, especially because a lot of people who are moving here are families. And so the smart thing that these builders did was they had a plot of land within the community that they donated to be used for a school. And the smart thing about this is really that people who are within the community are obviously going to be zoned for this school. And so you're going to the same school, K through 8th grade, with your friends who live in the same community.
My name is Aaron Chand, and me and my wife Aubrey make these videos for people just like you that are looking to relocate. We put these videos out every Wednesday, and our goal here is to just make them as helpful as possible and to provide the resources and the information that we found, having helped over 40 families relocate and buy homes in the Tampa Bay area in the last couple years. We know just what it's like to go through this process because we've walked through countless people go through it time and time again. And so if that's you, reach out to us on the number on the screen, no matter where you're at, whether you're 2 years out, whether you're 1 year out, whether you're here next week. We are looking forward to hearing from you because truly this is what we're passionate about. We love helping people, and I promise you that after a 5-minute call with me and Aubrey, you will feel so much better. We will help put together a strategy of exactly what you need to do to make your entire relocation process so easy. So if that's you, I'm going to put my number on the screen. Feel free to text or call this number. You can also email us. That's also on the screen. The Village Center is another big thing that is talked about around North River Ranch. And we actually drove through here. I'll show you in the video. This is not even nearly close to being done. So if you are moving to North River Ranch and this is something you're excited about, just know that they haven't even broken ground, really. They've just kind of laid the roads for it. But the Brightwood community is done, and then they're building all up in here. And then also the Cardel homes we're looking at in this video are all here along Richmond Trail. I want to show you guys what the Village Center here looks like in Parrish right now as of 2026. So we can flip the camera around so you guys can see what it looks like. And this is where that'll take place. So they've got a lot planned to go in here on the left and then also on the right, on both sides and down the center. They've also got, so this is where that'll be. Just so you guys can see. And I'll turn around because it dead ends down here. So main thing I want you guys to know is that it's not actually done. And so a lot of the amenities, even here in North River Ranch, are still yet to come, even though this place has been, even though they've been building in here for a while. Another thing to note about just North River Ranch and moving to Parrish in general is everything you're getting is brand new. So and that's one thing I love. Like this Publix specifically is the nicest Publix I've ever been in. It's 2 stories. It's got a pizza bar. It's got a sushi bar. It's got a burrito bowl bar. My Publix doesn't have nearly any of those things. And so that to me is also a big advantage to moving to an area like Parrish is when you first get there, if you're early on, you're going to notice that it's a mix of businesses that have been open for like 30 years and have been used to the small town vibes of Parrish and brand new Publixes, brand new, we got a brand new Aldi. We actually drove through a part of Parrish, and it's not just isolated to North River Ranch. It really is this whole area. Seaire, also Seaire. Yeah, that's something else I want to highlight. So Seaire, actually, they are building a Lagoon community in Parrish. And so this is coming. I've heard mixed feelings about these lagoons. I've never actually been to one. I still haven't determined how they're able to keep all the water this clean without just chlorinating the crap out of it. So I haven't brought myself to go and do that. But one thing I want you guys to note is that the growth is not just North River Ranch. Really, if you're in and around these areas, like especially like the lagoons, you don't have to be in Seaire to take advantage of the lagoons. In fact, even people in Seaire have basically the same opportunity you do with the lagoon. So keeping those things in mind is huge. Okay, so we're driving over to meet a past customer to get poke, and She took us to another spot called Detweiler's, which we'll show you guys later in the video, but it is a grocery store that has all completely fresh ingredients, and they get it all locally, and it was jam-packed when we were there. And on Saturdays, what do they do on Saturdays, Aubrey?
I think that they have a sale that they do because they close on Sundays, kind of like Chick-fil-A. So they like do all these sorts of produce sales and sales on stuff so that, you know, they kind of clear out the stuff that may go bad rather than letting it go to waste. And so that's kind of what they do. So when we came, we went on a Saturday and it was crazy busy. And I guess it's like that every Saturday. So if you want to go and not run into craziness or you don't really care about the sale, definitely maybe go on the weekdays. But it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of cool stuff there. Yeah.
Now, one thing I do want to highlight is as we were down there yesterday, we actually went down over here, and I'll put my little guy over here so you guys can see, but yeah, it kind of, yeah. This is what I was, okay, here, yeah, look at this, brand spanking new, and it blew my mind. Like, stuff like this is everywhere in Paris. This was just one that I remember we drove by yesterday that really, like, I was like, whoa, what the heck? Everything's new, everything's awesome. And I love that, and I love how many people are out and how they designed it. Okay, guys, so one thing that absolutely blew my mind as we pulled in here to get poke is just how every single business along this strip is brand spanking new, guys. And this isn't even close, really, to North Row Ranch. This is over by and closer to where downtown Parrish is. So you got an Aldi back there, and yeah. So here's what I mean by this. Yes, you're choosing Parrish because of its proximity to places like the beach, because of the lifestyle that you're getting in your community, in the master plan community. You're also close to downtown St. Pete. You're also close to downtown Tampa. You're also close to multiple airports, Tampa International Airport, and even Sarasota Bradenton Airport. I've heard has like great flights. I have a friend who flies in from Wisconsin, and he loves this airport. He says the flights here are great. They're direct. So there are plenty of opportunities in and around Parrish as well. And Parrish really opens it up to you being able to take advantage of a lot more things. But that being said, even within the Parrish Palmetto area, there is going to be a lot of growth similar to what we see in Wesley Chapel, built around the people that are living in the Parrish proper area. And part of that we're already seeing with like these restaurants I showed you guys here. And then you also have like stuff like Whiskey Joe's on the river. Now, one thing to note, different from Wesley Chapel, because they feel very similar, is Parrish feels like you are closer to the water, and you can just feel it while you're there. And that really is what makes a big difference and what is driving the bulk of the growth, I would say. Because on the West Coast, going north of Parrish, you do have new construction communities all up here, but there is nothing. There's nothing really in the Gulf. Okay, so we are here in Cardel's kind of last few homes in this phase. And so this is a quick move-in home. I want you guys to see what a quick move-in home looks like in Cardel and kind of what to expect when you're coming down here to look at quick move-in homes. This one's listed at $562,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,200 square feet with a den. It's nice to see a Cardel home without the furniture in it, but things to keep in mind are just how wide the entryway is. That makes a difference. The height of the ceilings, the tray ceilings, makes a difference. The taller door frames also make a difference. I'm just listing off all the upgrades that I notice when I walk into a home that tell me that this is a nicer builder. I'm looking for how many windows are there, how much natural light are we seeing, the carpet, the kitchen. I like the built-in gourmet kitchen. You can see they did a lot more detail around the island. So there's little things like that really make a difference between all these builders and why it's worth going with one builder over another. Oftentimes it's customization, oftentimes it's style, convenience, and with Cardel, I would say it's how they utilize smaller layouts. I really like how they utilize smaller floor plans to really maximize the space. Again, a big thing I find with folks when they move to Florida that they all love getting is any type of natural light. The more natural light you can get in your home, the better. And this is an upgrade. Again, this is another upgrade that I think is just, here's what I mean by that. If you're choosing between floors and taller door frames, floors and bigger sliding doors, floors and extended lanai, floors and paved driveway, like all the structural options are really the ones you want to prioritize. Stuff like the floors, you can do that later. Really, the most important thing, okay, so honestly, once you have your layout, really the next thing is determining where to put the home and what lot you want that on. And people say, oh, I'm fine with it anywhere. I really want to prioritize the home. I don't really mind what lot it's on, but really, I like to tell people lot is super important. So the master plan communities and the builders are going to do a fantastic job at trying to best design privacy around your home with the layout that they have. And so they do these mounds and they do these landscaping if your home backs up to the road. But even though it's private, I can still hear the road. So if my plan is to put a pool out here, that's just something that I'm going to have to deal with. And so for a lot of folks paying the extra, even 40, 50,000 to get the lot where they have unrestricted views in their backyard, complete privacy, that to them is worth it. And so that's why you'll see prices jump so much between like this quick move-in model versus the exact same home on a nicer lot. That's really why. The lot, there's a lot of value in the lot because, you know, they say it's like location, location, location. They're a little bit right about that. All right, we're here at another one, but real quick, again, this is why I want to show you guys, pay attention to the structurals over the designer options, because stuff like this, guys, it's easy to do afterwards. I can buy that for you and ship it to you on Amazon for your closing gift, but trust me, invest your money in these structurals. That's the stuff you can't change later, and trust me, it's worth it. All right, so what do we want to highlight here? Well, let's talk a bit about the anatomy of a home and what to expect when it comes to hurricanes. So Florida home standard is going to be concrete foundation and then concrete block exterior. So everything's concrete, which is nice. Now this home, it's a nice home.
Lots of natural light.
Yeah, lots of natural light, additional windows, even on a much smaller layout, guys. And like, we should probably go look at some other similar layouts this size, because really the difference this slider is making, I cannot overstate it in how big this room feels. This room would not feel so big if that slider wasn't there and if these windows were not there either. And again, a big reason this kitchen feels elevated is because they finished the trim on the other side of the island. They actually made that a cupboard. They went with the backsplash, and they took the cabinets as high as they could. Notice they didn't go all the way up. If they went all the way up, it would appear a lot nicer, and that crown molding would be flush with the ceiling. But, you know, we're kind of looking at an in-between, so this is good. This is good for us to get a nicer idea of kind of what to expect. Let's go to the backyard so you guys can see what to expect with a home that backs up to another home. So in most of these communities, you can do pretty much, now these are like deed restricted communities, so you can only do this black fence in this whole community. Now that switches community to community. You either see the black fence or the vinyl, but what I want to draw your guys' attention to is this drainage canal on our left. Now obviously this is not a pretty sight to look at, but it is an important part of why your guys' insurance is going to be so low on these new construction homes. And this is a big part of that because of the way these master plan communities design the drainage with the natural flow of the pre-existing natural waterways to funnel that flood water away from the houses and to a safe area. That is what really has made it so that you can get such low insurance rates on these new construction homes. Now, when it comes to the backyard, one big thing to notice in here, Aubrey, let's step back here and show them the side of the house. Because I want you guys to see this. I want you guys to see on a single story home just how much of this lot's footprint is taken up by the home. If this was a 2-story home, the footprint would likely end. It could like, even like right here makes a huge difference, because if you want to put a pool and still have some backyard, well, with a 2-story, you can do that. With a single story, that gets a little trickier because, you know, you've already used a good amount of your lot. So this, again, is pros and cons, but stuff to keep in mind when, you know, looking at a home. Other things I look at is like beyond that. Even when I'm buying a home and say I'm putting in a home here and this lot hasn't been built yet, I also kind of will ask around and see what home is going on that lot. Do we know yet? Because if that's a single story home, I'm going to value this lot more, because my lot is now going to have more privacy, because my backyard neighbor isn't going to be able to peer into my pool. Now, that's just stuff I think about. That might be important to you, might not be. But if it is, just know that there are ways to make sure you get what you want without having to compromise on it. All right, so we are on the bridge headed from Parrish back over towards St. Pete. And even though this is Interstate 275, one thing to know is that it does take a toll. And so you need a sun pass to go over across the bridge. And so it is a toll road. And that's something that is not clear off the bat, because it's also Interstate 275. And so as we were passing it, this is one of the best fishing spots in all of Tampa Bay, right off the bridge. People are always fishing there. And then also tons of windsurfers. And then also you can see that there's like a beach even here too. And then Aubrey's gonna show, we're just going over kind of the last little bridge here before we get into St. Pete. And so if you are living in Parrish, this is the drive you will be taking going into St. Pete. And you can take this all the way up to Tampa, but honestly, it makes more sense to go I-75 and not go across the bridge and just go up Tampa that way. And it takes about the same to get from Parrish to Tampa. From Parrish to St. Pete is roughly 20 to 30 minutes, but it is super quick. And one thing I've noticed is that because there really isn't too many exits along anywhere on the bridge, there isn't too many opportunities for traffic to back up, which isn't the case in other spots like 19, where sometimes it feels like it backs up just because there is like a million lights. Okay, I want to talk about the process around building a home, and specifically kind of something that a lot of folks are more nervous around, which is the inspection process. Do I need to get an inspection? Doesn't the builder get an inspection? Is it a brand new home? Will there be problems with it? What do I need to know and do around that? And here's what I'll say. No matter who the builder is, there are a lot of people involved with constructing your home. And my recommendation to you guys as your realtor is to go and hire a third-party inspector, because it just is worth it. Everybody that I've seen do it has loved it. And I'll show you an example of what an inspection report looks like in Parrish for a customer that bought with Homes by West Bay and moved here. I think it was sometime in last year. I can't quite remember. But here's what I like about showing people this is just how, like, most people don't realize that when you get a pre-drywall inspection, that inspector is really getting his one and only opportunity. That's really the one and only opportunity we have to see the home, the raw bones of the home, to see how well it was made, how well were the joists put in, how well was the electric done, how well was the plumbing done, everything before you put on the paint, before you put on the drywall, before you kind of hide everything more or less. Not that they're trying to hide anything, but if there was anything that was hidden, it would be hidden after they do that. And so getting the inspection at this point is just crucial, because everything the inspector finds, like if you're taking something to the builder and you're saying, hey, Mr. Builder, the way this cabinet was installed is not correct. You can tell by the fact that it is not even and it is slanted. And what the builder is going to say when he looks at that is he's going to go, yeah, that's true. I have to fix it. This is a product that I'm offering to my customers. I care about my product. And so they almost always, as long as it's reasonable, as long as it makes sense what we're trying to say, they are 100% going to fix it, because that's at the end of the day, that is their goal. That is the company's goal, is to have happy customers. And so all these issues that the inspector found, which are just small issues, some sealant needed, a couple loose straps, probably stuff they would have caught anyhow, but it's just nice to even know that, hey, my house was built really, really well, and I don't necessarily need to worry down the road. And I know that my warranties are, I don't even rely on my warranties because it was built so well. And so that is a nice thing to know. Now, you can get another inspection, and I advise this, but really it's the pre-drywall one that I think makes a big difference that I've noticed people have loved. And when they told me that after they've gotten it, we're really glad we got that. Okay, real quick, I want to talk about CDDs, and this is something that is so confusing and so complicated, and I wish someone explained it to me like this because it really is pretty simple. Look at this map, guys. Look at all the growth and all the new communities you see on the map. And someone explained it to me like this, and it just made so much sense. All of this growth, there's no way that the government could realistically fund this correctly without cutting corners and just making it look like a dystopian future. Like, it's just too quick, it's too fast. It needs to be privatized somehow. Basically, a CDD is this. The developer is saying, hey, Mr. Uncle Sam, let me go ahead and pay for that infrastructure, pay for the development so that I can start building this community so that I can sell houses and make money. And then what I'll do is I will transfer that bond to the homeowners, and then they will pay that back in their property taxes over time. And then once the amount to place in that infrastructure is paid off, that portion of the bond will go away, and then the remaining CDD will just be the portion of what it will cost the taxpayers to maintain those roads and that infrastructure moving forward. So it's really not something that makes sense to even avoid. Like, yes, it is an added fee, but the reason you are inquiring this added fee is because you are getting a community. Yes, it's annoying, but in terms of who's profiting from it, really it's you. You're the one that is benefiting from CDDs. And so, yes, they are something to factor in when it comes to the costs analysis, and it is something that is in your tax bill. Here, I'll show you guys. So it actually shows up in your tax bill. So it is not an HOA. And so it's not to be confused with an HOA. The rules, a CDD cannot impose any crazy rules like an HOA can. Like, oh, you can't paint your house that color. They do not care. This is really only about how do we pay for this infrastructure, because Florida does have a massive problem of everybody wants to build here, everybody wants to move here, and it's the government's job to place in the roads, place in the infrastructure, but also we don't necessarily have the time to keep up with y'all's growth. So you think of a solution. The developers, that's where they came up with CDDs. So for quick move-in homes, and these are really going to be like Lennar, D.R. Horton, a lot of these builders are going to be the ones that build the most inventory. Typically, these layouts, though, are really, really practical and have been very well thought out. So some of D.R. Horton and Lennar's layouts are really unmatched, like in terms of practicality. Nothing touches them. And so with a lot of the quick move-in homes, they're going to be 0 to 3 months. And these are going to be all the ones that the builder is most eager to move. And so the heaviest incentives are going to be directed towards these. And all the builder is trying to do in these situations is to sell the pre-existing inventory they have, just so that they can move along with the build, with the process, with getting the other homes started, because they do not like sitting vacant homes. That is not good for business. It is not good for anything. And so whatever they can do to sell their homes that they have that are done, they're going to do quickly. And so some builders only build inventory / spec homes, and spec basically stands for speculation, which is another way of saying this is what the builder speculates the market wants in a home right now. So they're going to pick out the upgrades and the structural options as best as they can, but those are locked in. You can't choose or make any changes. What's nice about this is if your timeline is 0 to 3 months, there are plenty of options, and you can kind of just look at all the spec homes that are almost done and just see which one out of the ones you like match what you want. And it's very traditional to looking at like a resale home, except you're dealing directly with the builder. So at the end of the day, it's still a lot easier than dealing with a seller. If there's any issues with the home, if anything comes up during the inspection, the builder is going to take care of all those things, because that is their job. Their job is to get you that done, finished product, and they care about delivering on that product well. Then you've got your production builders. Really, this is the majority of builders, and these are the folks that are really they have standard floor plans, and then they let you choose a bit. They'll let you maybe choose a couple structurals. They'll let you maybe choose a couple different design options, but for the most part, you don't really get a say and choice in as to what goes into the home. Really, here you get to pick the lot and then the home or that it goes on, and then you get to go to the design center, pick out the floors, pick out the kitchen, pick out the counters, cabinet colors, things like that. But you can't necessarily like go all out on like different floors, tray ceilings, higher door frames, in-law suite, or things like that, because really the customization from here onward starts to really open up. Like the options get pretty dang endless. If you want the most options possible, like if you are talking about planning and designing your dream home, like basically to the point where it's like working with a custom home builder, then there are some really, really good options in Parrish. For instance, Homes by West Bay, working with them legitimately almost feels like you're working with like the architect themselves, because the options with West Bay are endless. Like truly, West Bay goes all out with everything. And so really, this is important for you guys to differentiate, because when you are looking at builders, when you're just looking at the computer generated images that we have, it's tough to differentiate between, okay, well, this is 3,500 square feet and a Lennar, and this other one is a 3,500 square feet and a Home by West Bay, but I have no idea at all what, like, these AI generated images do not give an accurate representation of what you're actually getting in the home. And really the features that elevate a home, it's not just square footage. Here's what I mean by that. The homes in Parrish are all going to be very much, they might look very much similar in terms of square footage, in terms of bedrooms, in terms of lot sizes, but where the differences really start to stack are in the things that you don't necessarily see. For instance, do they use, is the driveway concrete or is it pavers? Pavers typically demand a higher premium. The neighbors, how many of the same layout do you see on the same street? If it's not that much, that's because the builder regulates that layout, and they regulate the elevation so that it doesn't look as cookie cutter in the neighborhood. But these are all things that affect resale in a way that just isn't clear off the bat. So the other thing I'll say about new construction is it can get really, really overwhelming when you're sitting down with the builder, because to make an offer, to go under contract, you have to decide on your structurals. And that's such a big decision, because your structurals are everything to do with really what actually ends up making the home the home. The design center stuff is just easy stuff that you can do at any point, but a decision has to be made there. And the builder is nice. They do let you make that decision way further down the road, so you have a lot more time to think about that. But the reason they do that is because it really doesn't affect them too much in terms of logistically. Logistically, what they really need to get down is your structurals, because that's really what makes this home your home. And so here is where I tell people, even within the structurals, like really think about the things that you cannot change later. For instance, if you want outlets in the floor, on the ground floor, that's a concrete slab. That is something that you do not want to do later. So put that in now and avoid getting the crown molding. Because if we're working with a budget, because you're going to have a structural budget, you're going to have a design center budget, you're going to have a lot budget, and then you're going to have the base price of the home. And so we have to end up within our target price and factor in all those things. And where I think you as a buyer should give more weight is in those things that are going to help your resaleability and are going to be impossible to change later. And that's structural things and things to do with the lot. That being said, there are builders that will put in a pool. I typically say to folks, and a lot of the builders actually are the ones that have mentioned this to me, but they've said, don't get a pool with us. We literally subcontract it to this guy and basically do an upcharge because of the added risk of taking on the pool as part of the package. There are financing options with local pool companies. And so if getting a pool is something you want, but not necessarily a priority today, but it's something you want down the road, just know that you don't have to get that today. Really, the most important thing to do with the builder is to get the pre-plumbing for the pool done. And I would say do the same for the outdoor kitchen, because outdoor kitchens are also something that just for whatever reason generate a good ROI. In terms of buyers just love it. Buyers are going, wow, they did the outdoor kitchen. They gravitate towards those upgrades a lot more than they'll gravitate towards things like, oh, they have the wrought iron staircase, or they have the wrought iron railings. Wow, that's awesome. Or they have the crown molding. Wow, that's for some reason they always gravitate towards things like, okay, they did the pre-plumbing for the pool because it's a practical upgrade. They did the pre-plumbing for the outdoor kitchen. Again, that's a practical one. They extended the lanai, super practical. Even if you don't necessarily need the lanai now, you can't necessarily extend the lanai later. Or if you want to, it's just not even worth it, like in terms of the headache that would come with that, especially depending on how the roof line is.